Hello guys, this is your friend Shinobi Nexus 2.0 and we are back in new fanfic. What if Naruto Tsunade gave Sakura a mission that changed everything part 3? Wait, I'm confused. You have a thing going with the gorgeous Shisui Uchiha, but you are about to go on a date with Sasuke, Shisui's younger cousin. Oh, this is getting good. Your life is like a soap opera. Ino dragged Sakura into her bedroom while speaking at such a fast pace that Sakura's head was spinning. This love triangle could get really steamy. Knowing Shisui, he would probably be in for a threesome, maybe not. Uchiha men tend to be a little possessive. Now that I think about it, I could definitely see them fighting for you. Have you and Shisui not talked about your relations yet? Ino was pulling out clothes as fast as she was talking and Sakura plopped down on her bed. No. Just give me a minute to breathe, pig. I didn't even agree to this date. I was just kind of pushed into it. I know I had feelings for Sasuke for a long time, but I've gotten over him and it feels nice to have him as a friend, a brother. I don't want this to ruin that. Since I stopped chasing him, he's actually accepted me as a friend and colleague. As to your Shisui question, no. We haven't talked about what we are yet, but he keeps saying he wants to. I like Shisui, and I don't want Sasuke to mess with my head and confuse me. Sakura buried her face in her hands and let out a pained moan. Ino looked at her best friend and made a snap decision. Wait here, forehead. I'll fix this for you. Sakura was not happy with how Ino decided to fix her situation. In fact, she was highly embarrassed and wanted to throw herself off of a cliff. Shisui-san, Sakura needs you to fix a problem for her, and I think you should take her back to your apartment to do that. Ino had brought Shisui into her room and was now standing next to the bed that held her blushing best friend. Shisui walked up to the bed and knelt down to Sakura's face level. He looked into her eyes for a while before speaking quietly. What did Sasuke do? His question only made Sakura that much more embarrassed and Ino snickered. He asked her on a date and she is super confused now because you two haven't had the talk. Ino inspected her nails as Sakura jolted up and glared at her. Ino shrugged at her friend's glare and left the room. Ah, well, I guess we'll have to rectify the situation then. Shisui abruptly picked up Sakura and teleported them into his living room. He sat them both on the sofa and then proceeded to take their shoes off and place them near the door. She noticed the bags under his eyes and instantly remembered how busy he'd been the past few days. Shisui, we don't have to do this right now. You're tired and you've been so busy. No, we've been putting this talk off for too long, and I don't want there to be any more issues because of it. I told you on the last mission that my intentions were to court you and that is exactly what I plan to do. Shisui's calm voice made Sakura relax some, but she was still on edge. He ran his hand over his face and through his hair as he sat next to her, showing his exhaustion. Sakura, will you do me the honor of being my girlfriend? I know I'm a bit older than you, but I'll treat you well. I can't promise it will be perfect, but I will be yours and only yours. Shisui gently took her hand as he spoke, rubbing circles on her palm with his thumb. She opened her mouth to reply when they were rudely interrupted by his door flying open and crashing against the wall. Her body jerked forward on high alert. Shisui dragged her back against his side before she could comprehend the action, barely registering their proximity before her attention was back on the intruder. Naruto barged in with Sasuke hot on his heels, causing Sakura to roll her eyes. Shisui stood up and released some of his irritated chakra, making the pressure in the room rise. Sakura-chan, we're here to. Naruto, what did I tell you would happen if you barged into my apartment again without knocking? You are both interrupting a personal moment, and I am not in a very forgiving mood right now. The slow, quiet voice Shisui used as he spoke put both of them on edge. Shisui took deliberate steps towards the two and they backed up step for step on instinct. Either leave this instance and face the consequences later or face the consequences now. Either way, I will be teaching you two a lesson about not interfering in my business. His Sharingan activated and Sasuke grabbed Naruto to stop him from doing anything stupid. Shisui-san, we are supposed to be going to dinner with Sakura tonight. I would have knocked but, you know how Naruto is. He just barged in. Shisui paused at the semi-apology he received from Sasuke. He crossed his arms and narrowed his eyes. I was told it was a date. No matter. Leave. Sakura and I have a few things to discuss tonight. Sasuke bristled at the obvious dismissal and growled out, she is our teammate first and foremost, Shisui. Shisui Flash stepped in front of the pair and whispered menacingly so Sakura could not hear. I don't care. You are both treading on very dangerous territory, and I will not hesitate to embarrass you in front of her. This is the last warning I'm giving you two, drop it. We'll discuss your complaints later. Sasuke and Naruto shared a glance and then left the apartment while glaring daggers at Shisui. Sakura's brows drew together as she watched the whole ordeal and she sighed loudly when Shisui shut the door after the two left. Sakura decided to take the initiative and took Shisui's arm to lead him back to the couch. The inquisitive look he gave her almost made her lose her nerve, but she sat down next to him, tucking a stray hair behind her ear. I'm sorry about that, Shisui. Those two just don't know when to quit, however, please go easy on them. They are my original teammates, and they mean a lot to me. She met his gaze and tried not to fidget. My answer to your question is yes, I would love to be your girlfriend. The blush she was trying to hide blazed to life, and Shisui chuckled at her nervousness. Good. Now, as much as I would like to celebrate this moment, I'm tired. I've had a long few days, and I need some rest. He stood up and gently pulled her up with him. He caressed her cheek and drew her close to him, his large hand cupping her lower back. However, things will change a bit now that we're together. I won't tolerate any other men being too comfortable with you. Sakura opened her mouth to protest, but he silenced her with 2 fingers over her lips. I'm not saying you can't have guy friends, but I did warn you how jealous I can be. I don't like the idea of anyone seeing you in any state of undress. I understand you're a kunoichi and a job is a job. But here, in Konoha, no one else should get that privilege. He slid his hand to the back of her neck and moved his mouth to rest against her neck. He inhaled deeply and nuzzled a sensitive spot just below her ear. I want to do a lot of things with you right now, Sakura, but for both our sakes, I'll restrain myself. I'll see you in the morning. He roughly kissed her on the forehead and walked briskly out of the living room. Sakura was frozen in place and her mouth hung open in the shape of an O. When she heard his door quietly close upstairs, she jumped as if it were slammed. Sakura was in the kitchen making herself some coffee when a light knock met her ears. She quickly ran to the door to stop the visitor from waking up Shisui and yanked it open. She was wearing a loose tank top without her chest bindings and small, silky shorts that hardly covered her bottom. Itachi and Sasuke were standing in front of her, and she let them in with a warning for them to be quiet. She frowned when she realized that Itachi adamantly refused to look at her, and Sasuke kept throwing quick glances her way with narrowed eyes. What the hell has those two in such a weird state? She started cooking a simple brunch seeing as it was 11:30 and let her thoughts wander. I wonder why those two are here. I don't remember Sasuke saying that he would be coming over today. I'm surprised he would come over after what happened last night. No way is Shisui going to let that go very easily. That man enjoys his privacy. She blew a strand of hair out of her face loudly and continued cooking. She could faintly hear the two brothers talking and looked up when they grew a little louder. Her eyes met the sleepy gaze of her new boyfriend over the counter. She flushed slightly when he didn't look away after Itachi spoke to him and turned back to finish the meal. A light pitter-patter of bare feet hitting the floor made her frown since none of the men in the room ever made a sound when they walked. I wonder if it's for my benefit. Sure enough, when she glanced over her shoulder she gulped in appreciation and anticipation at the figure leaning against the kitchen entrance. Shisui was standing with his arms crossed over his bare chest. He was wearing sweatpants that hung low on his ass and she couldn't help but stare at his defined, muscular torso. She turned halfway towards him not knowing what to expect but froze when she noticed his red orbs. He locked eyes with her for a moment and then slowly took in every inch of her as she tried not to feel self-conscious. She swallowed with some difficulty and his eyes jumped to her throat to follow the movement and then back to hers. "Stay," was growled out lowly and then he whirled around to disappear back upstairs again. She all but fell against the counter panting and closed her eyes to try and gather her wits. What did I get myself into? He just looks at me a certain way and I basically fall apart. Get it together, Sakura. Ino was right, I have to overlook all the intimidating factors and just get to know him. I mean, let's be honest, he'll always be intimidating but that doesn't mean I won't get used to it. I hope I get used to it soon. This cannot be good for my heart. Sakura tensed up again and peeked out through one eye only to see a well-defined chest inches away from her. Gah, can you please try to make some noise so you don't give me a heart attack? Sakura's voice came out as a squeak as she tried to jump away but slammed into the counter instead. Shisui raised an eyebrow at her antics and placed something soft and large in her outstretched hand. She ignored it in favor of rubbing her now aching lower back. She unconsciously leaned her forehead on his chest as she gave her hand room to massage the spot she bumped. She grew very still when he chuckled and his breath caressed her hair. One of his hands wove into her pink locks and the other around her waist to her back. He gently massaged her small injury, and she let out a low hum of satisfaction. Both froze as soon as the sound came out and he took a calculated step away from her. His eyes narrowed once again in agitation and pointed at the article of clothing in her hand. Put that on. She blinked slowly at his receding back, noticing his muscles shift and glide with his movements and then looked down at what he had given her. She scoffed and slid the black, long-sleeved shirt on and twisted to look at the Uchiha symbol now displayed on her back. The shirt was so long that it hung about 3 inches above her knee. It covered a lot more than her shorts did. She laughed lightly and rolled her eyes at his obvious possessive nature. She had to roll the sleeves up several times to see her hands. I hope he knows he isn't getting this shirt back. Brunch is ready, you three. Eat while it's still hot. She placed the food down in the middle of the table and sat down as they sauntered into the room. Itachi finally looked at her with some relief in his eyes and gave her a small, genuine smile. However, Sasuke seemed unhappy with the change and decided to tease his teammate and cousin. Sakura, why are you wearing Shisui's shirt? What you had on suited you just fine. Sasuke sipped his orange juice and smirked as Itachi visibly paused before continuing to fill his plate. Shisui made no outward signs of agitation, but as Sakura watched Sasuke's face, she knew Shisui had reacted in some way she couldn't yet notice. Sakura smiled brightly and decided to end the topic. Not that I'm not happy to see you both or anything, but why are you two here? Is Shisui telling you your punishment for losing Itachi's game? However, Sasuke was determined to get under Shisui's skin. Yeah, that's why we're here so early. Sakura, are we still on for our dinner date? You seemed really enthusiastic about the whole thing. The smirk he sent her way made Sakura growl at him and she abruptly stood up. Sasuke, you and Naruto are as good as. Her rant was cut short when Shisui took her clenched fist and guided her to sit on his lap. Sakura turned bright red as he adjusted her on his legs so that her back was against his chest and her legs were resting slightly sideways on his. One of his arms wrapped around her waist and his hand splayed across her. The other hand traveled to rest on her thigh, just under the shirt he let her borrow. Sasuke visibly tensed and Itachi crossed his arms, surveying the whole scene with rapt interest. Sasuke, I don't like the idea of you asking my girlfriend out on a date. Shisui raised an eyebrow as he spoke. He started lazily drawing circles on Sakura's bare thigh, and the silence stretched on as both men glared at one another. Neither of them were backing down, and Sakura felt herself growing more and more nervous as Sasuke's eyes lit up with realization. She cleared her throat nervously and placed her hand on Shisui's to stop his teasing fingers. All three men looked at her and she mentally slapped herself for gaining their attention. Sakura chose to focus on Itachi, who seemed to be safe at the moment, and asked, "Are you finished with your plate?" He smiled and rested his face in his palm lazily. "Shisui, let's get this over with. What's my punishment?" "Sakura-san, you can clean up later. I don't think you'll want to miss whatever he has planned for us." Sasuke was furious to say the least. Why the hell am I getting basically double punished? I don't think it's fair that Shisui gets to forego your punishment to bribe you into giving me a specific punishment, Aniki. Get over it, Ototo. We both warned you not to lose. I made up the other rules, and I say this works just fine. Let's get this over with. Itachi walked towards him as Shisui chuckled evilly. Sakura was having a hard time keeping a straight face but couldn't help wondering if Shisui was picking this punishment for more than one reason. When he glanced at her, the gleam in his eyes told her that her assumption was right. Flashback. Shisui chuckled at the tone Itachi was using and got straight to the point. I want to make a deal, Itachi. I won't punish you if you give Sasuke a punishment that I choose. Sasuke bristled and immediately said that this would be cheating, but he was ignored. Interesting, what do you have in mind? Itachi glanced at Sasuke again and rolled his eyes. Sasuke, you should have seen this coming. You've been asking for it for a while. Sasuke didn't argue and avoided Sakura's questioning glances. She was highly confused and wasn't trying to hide it. Sakura stood up to clean the table off and glanced at Shisui to see if she could understand what they were talking about. The possessive way he was looking at her made everything click. You're getting back at him for all the interactions we've had, aren't you? Shisui glanced up at her blandly, and she rolled her eyes. He narrowed his eyes at her when she did but continued to talk with Itachi. I won't tell you what I want his punishment to be. You either agree to it, or don't, it's that simple. Do we have a deal or not? Itachi thought for a moment and then nodded his head once. Shisui broke into a devilish grin and Sasuke groaned. Sasuke has to ask Ino-san on a date. The date has to be for the entire day, and he has to act like he wants to be there. Shisui glanced at Sakura's dumbfounded face and his smile grew bigger. We'll obviously be watching to make sure the date goes as planned. End flashback. Somehow Sakura found herself on a double lunch date with Ino and Sasuke. She was not at all happy with being dragged into this, but Shisui was enjoying Sasuke's discomfort too much to pass up the opportunity. Ino had arrived at Shisui's apartment with Sasuke on her arm and decided that since both of them were dating Uchiha men, a double date was in order. When Sakura tried to decline, Shisui appeared and gleefully accepted. Sakura, how long have you and Shisui been together? Ino clung to Sasuke's arm as if he was going to disappear, and Sasuke tried his damnedest to seem as if he wanted to be on the date. Ino, you know how long we've been together. You basically threw me at him the other night. Ino snickered and Shisui leaned in to whisper in her ear while encircling her with his arms. He was so close that his lips brushed her ear with every word and she could feel the heat of his chest on her side. I'll have to make sure to thank her for that. Of course, I still have to show you my gratitude for your response, too. Sakura blushed and Ino all but celebrated at the two in front of her. This lunch is actually kind of fun. I can tell that Ino knows this isn't a real date, but I'm still going to talk to her about it later. I wonder when Shisui and I'll go on a date of our own. As if reading her mind, Shisui added one more whisper in her ear before receding to his own seat again. Just to clarify, this is not our first date. Sakura excused herself after she finished her food. Sorry pig, I have to go see Tsunade. I have a few questions to ask her. Shisui stood up and walked her to the door of the restaurant. Shisui, I won't be back for a while. Shisho and I have a lot to discuss. Sakura looked down as she walked out of the place and was slightly surprised when Shisui walked out with her. He nodded to show that he heard and kept walking towards the Hokage Tower. Right before she walked into the building, Shisui grabbed her elbow and pulled her into his chest. What time do you think you'll be finished? His whispered question was so low that Sakura leaned in to hear what he was saying. As he spoke, one hand wandered to the small of her back and rooted her against him. His other hand caressed her cheek and held her face tilted up to meet his serious gaze. I'm not sure. She swallowed as she noticed his focus shifting from her eyes to her lips. The heat coming from his hand on her back felt like it was traveling through her entire body and her breath became shallow. He leaned in slowly and maintained eye contact until their lips met, and her eyes snapped shut at the onslaught of feelings and emotions rushing through her. His lips covered hers and moved slowly, tentatively. She buried her hands in his hair and rose up on her tiptoes to deepen the kiss, and she was not disappointed. He made a noise in the back of his throat and instantly moved to pull her head back by her hair. The tug was gentle but firm enough for her to obey, and he nipped her lip with his teeth. She gasped at the tingling sensation, and he instantly took the opportunity to glide his tongue over the same area. He pulled away and she tried to follow him, but he stopped her by tugging on her hair again. Sakura, you should go talk with Tsunade. She gave him a confused, dazed look and he chuckled. He guided her head to the side and whispered in her ear. If you don't leave now, we'll share more than just a kiss. When she finally realized what he meant, she blushed deeply and started stammering. He chuckled and brushed his thumb over her now swollen lip. I love how innocent you are, Sakura. She nipped at his thumb and gave him a devilish grin. I like how forward you are, Shisui. She walked away and left a slightly stunned Uchiha staring after her. He chuckled as he realized she had just walked through the entire village still wearing his shirt, while Sakura inwardly yelled at herself for being so bold. Oh my Kami. What was I thinking? He might take this as an invitation. Not that I would mind too terribly much. Tsunade assessed her student carefully. Sakura, are you alright? You seem flustered. Sakura shut the doors and sat down in a chair. She broke out into a huge grin and started laughing giddily. Tsunade-sama, I think I'm having one of the best days of my life right now. Tsunade smirked and pulled out a jar of sake and 2 glasses. Tell me all about it, Sakura. I need a break from all this paperwork and legalities. Tsunade poured 2 glasses as Sakura pulled a chair close. They downed the drinks and Tsunade asked cheekily, does your happiness have to do with the person who owns the shirt you are currently wearing? Sakura frowned and looked down at her shirt, panic quickly overtaking her features. Oh, crap. This seriously breaks mission protocol, and I just walked through the entire village with his freaking shirt on. There is no way our superiors won't hear about this. I don't want the council on my back, and I definitely don't want anyone giving him any extra stress. His clan gives him plenty. What should I do? Tsunade laughed loudly and downed another cup of sake. Sakura, you're living with the guy. If anyone asks, you just borrowed his shirt because it was what you wanted to wear. You know women can get away with that stuff. Besides, you're my apprentice, you're in Anbu, you're the best medic we have in Konoha besides myself, and he wouldn't let anyone do anything about it. Tsunade raised a finger to stop Sakura from speaking and pulled another bottle of sake out. He knows you can take care of yourself, that much is a given. He would have never let you into Anbu otherwise. However, him being an Uchiha and a male won't allow him to not step in when you have a problem. Even if you prove you are capable, he will still deal with whatever the issue is on his own. That's just how Chi-Chi is when it comes to people he cares about. Plus, he's too important for the Anbu captain to risk him leaving over something like this. No one will refute him. Sakura huffed and downed a couple of shots. She was starting to feel the effects and looked over to see a slight blush on Tsunade's face from the liquor. You're right. The only ones who could really have any pull on his career are either in his clan or on your council. The council would come after me before they even approached him. I still hate the idea of someone protecting me. Frankly, it pisses me off and brings back all those useless memories. Sakura paused for a moment and looked at Tsunade quizzically. How well do you know Shisui and how the hell did he get that nickname? Tsunade chuckled and animatedly started telling Sakura the story whilst drinking cup after cup in quick succession. Flashback. Tsunade had a run-in with Danzo's root operatives, a common occurrence, but this time was different. No communication was attempted. These idiots just keep coming. Shizune, we're going to have to really fight to get away. Shizune nodded and wiped her wet hair from her face. Rain was pouring down all around them when they were cornered. Tsunade punched her way through several ninjas before she found one who could actually dodge her hits. Oh, you seem like you might be a little fun. I have to warn you, I haven't had any sake in a while, so I'm grumpy. The words were almost lost when the ground was smashed in by her fists. Shizune used the distraction to take out several operatives with her poison Senbon. Lady Tsunade, we have to run. There are too many of them for us to win. Tsunade growled as they were surrounded. They aren't going to let us escape. We have to win or die trying. With that, Tsunade leapt back and planted herself near Shizune. Before any more attacks could be thrown, a blur moved through the hostile group, eviscerating over half. An Anbu member flashed into existence near the two, and the root members hesitated as they saw his leaf forehead protector. Tsunade put a glowing hand on Shizune and healed a few wounds the woman had while staring at the newcomer warily. The masked man spoke menacingly to the group. What are Danzo's dogs doing attacking a citizen of the Leaf? This could be considered an act of war. He flash-stepped into the middle of the cluster, Tanto in hand. His taijutsu was on another level, not allowing any jutsu to be completed before he engaged his opponents. He glided between bodies, blood spraying in his wake. Tsunade hummed appreciatively, knowing a honed weapon when she saw one. Knowing they were fighting a losing battle, several root members released poison gas, not caring about those around them. Tsunade hastily took action and threw Shizune away from the smoke. She pumped chakra through her body to counteract the poison and went searching for the masked savior. She found him kneeling, surrounded by dead bodies, about to pass out. She hauled him over her shoulder and walked out of the purple cloud. Let's find an inn. We all need rest and I need to get the poison out of his system. She jostled him awake when they reached a comfortable place to stay and shouted, "Boy, what's your name?" A barely audible Chi-Chi could be heard and Tsunade snorted while removing his mask. Shizune, we might have a problem. Chi-Chi here is an Uchiha and based on how strong he is, he's probably being watched by his council. They'll be looking for him. Send a message to the Hokage with our location. End flashback. Sakura sat still for a moment and then looked at Tsunade in a new light. You saved each other. Her words were slightly slurred and Tsunade found this unbearably funny. She laughed so hard that she almost fell out of her chair and Sakura started to laugh with her. Shizune stormed in and both women grew quiet, trying to appear sober. Really? Sakura, did you have to drink with her? They both laughed a little longer until Sakura grew serious and tried to think straight. Shisho, I actually came here to talk to you about a few things. Sakura looked up to see that Tsunade was putting the sake away and giving her a knowing look. What happened with Kabuto and Danzo? How has their interrogation been? Sakura, burn some of that alcohol off and I'll tell you. She nodded and did as she was told while Tsunade browsed through a few stacks of papers. I found out why your poison wasn't as effective on Kabuto as it should have been. Tsunade handed Sakura a piece of paper, and she quickly scanned it. Her eyebrows rose incredulously at what it showed. So what you're saying is, someone has been feeding Orochimaru information on us, current information. Which means we have a spy in our midst, again. Sakura looked up and met Tsunade's hard gaze with one of her own. What's the plan? Tsunade shook her head subtly. We're still interrogating him but have yet to get any useful information. We know the whereabouts of a few hideouts and about some of the experiments but nothing in depth. Kakashi is going to use his Sharingan today. We're hoping to gain more insight on a few other organizations that have appeared lately. Tsunade pulled a few other files out and watched Sakura's face closely. Sakura nodded once and didn't ask any of the questions that were burning through her mind. Tsunade was already telling her more than she was supposed to. Danzo is a little trickier. We have him in a cell right now, and we're monitoring his movements but we have yet to start his interrogation properly. He seems to have some sort of seal on his body that is preventing us from doing what we want. It has an adverse effect on the person who is questioning him, and he seems too smug for us to relax our guard. He's up to something, but I don't know what it is yet. Tsunade handed Sakura a file and her eyes read through it greedily. Her hand covered her mouth in disgust and her eyes flew up to Tsunade's. Shisho, this is awful. Have you told anyone else? Tsunade shook her head no and Sakura looked at her with pleading eyes. Tsunade rolled her eyes and said, Sakura, I forbid you to tell anyone this information. This is S-rank material and you shouldn't even know about it. Sakura visibly relaxed and nodded, happy that her sensei knew what she had needed. Sakura walked towards her apartment as the sun started to set, determined to clean some of the dust that had gathered in her absence. I wonder what the seal is that they can't break. I'm not good with them, so I won't even offer my help but Kakashi or an Uchiha would be advantageous. However, I can't really tell Shisui anything, and I doubt Tsunade wants to tell anyone else. The less people that know, the safer Konoha is. She was ripped out of her thoughts as someone jumped in front of her. On instinct, she grabbed the person and slammed them to the ground. She twisted the person's arm cruelly and pinned it behind their back in a matter of seconds. She pushed one knee into their neck and the other in the lower region of their back before she finally registered who was pinned underneath her. Damn it! Let me go, Sakura, Kiba growled out. Sakura loosened her hold a little bit but did not let go. A smug look flitted across her features before she shut it down. Kiba, what are you doing sneaking up on me like that? I could have killed you. She tilted her head and curiously admired her quick work. I've gotten so much better. I can't believe I just pinned him without even thinking about it. I'll have to be more aware so I don't hurt someone. I didn't sneak up on you. I called your name like 3 times, but you were so out of it that I thought I would try something else to get your attention. Well, don't do it again, and I'm sorry for not being more aware. She stood up and offered him a hand. He looked at it for a moment and then took it with a grin. Akamaru sidled up to them and licked Sakura's hand carefully. She gave him a questioning look. What's up with him? Kiba scratched the back of his head and laughed nervously. Sakura, you just put me on my ass without breaking a sweat. He's just showing his respect. She nodded absent-mindedly and then started walking again. Wait, I need to talk to you for a minute. She stopped and raised an eyebrow. I feel bad for all the crap you got because of me and I want to make it up to you. Kiba grinned, showing his canines. I don't know, Kiba. You seem to always get me in trouble. Sasuke and Naruto still want to kick your ass, and Shisui and I are still figuring things out. Her sentence trailed off and he laughed at her concern. Sakura, since when has that stopped us from hanging out? Come on, We're still good friends, and I know you miss swimming with the Ninken. They miss you, too. It's almost nightfall and that's when the lake is the most fun. Kiba grinned as Sakura froze and looked around carefully. I won't try anything funny, promise. I miss hanging out with you, you're a great friend. Sakura broke out into a grin and the two raced towards the Inuzuka compound. Sakura beat Kiba by a good 3 minutes and he glared as he stopped next to her. What the hell type of training did you go through for Anbu? You're on a completely different level than me now. Kiba walked them into his house and Sakura smirked. It was intense but totally worth it. The bad thing is that I'm still not up to par with the guys on my squad. She grabbed 2 towels and followed Kiba to the kennels. Are you serious? I can't imagine. However, you are on the Uchiha team. Don't beat yourself up. They're a league of their own. Don't be surprised if the dogs won't leave your side. They see you as one of the pack and they'll want to put the pack scent back on you. Kiba opened the gate and hollered to wake up the pack. They jumped up and immediately ran for Sakura. Some of the ones who could talk made their excitement known while others barked, bayed, and whined. Sakura, you're back. What took you so long? Are you here to play? Did this runt run you off? Sakura laughed and petted the mass of fur surrounding her. Calm down. I'm here for a swim and to visit you all. Let's go have some fun. Kiba bared his teeth in excitement and everyone careened towards the lake. Sakura came back to an empty apartment and frowned. It was about 2 a.m. and there was no reason for Shisui to be out. I don't feel his chakra signature. Maybe I should ask Sasuke or Itachi about it. She opened the front door with every intention of searching for him and came to an abrupt halt. A masked person was standing half turned away in the now open doorway. Sakura narrowed her eyes and analyzed the situation in seconds. Wearing all black, stealth. Face covered, anonymity. Froze when the door opened, caught in the act. Tensed in a fighting stance, enemy. Sakura ripped the door off its hinges and slammed it into the intruder's body. The speed at which they dodged the door guarantees that they are Anbu level. She gritted her teeth and dodged the Senbon thrown at her. Those were dripping with poison and the person aimed for a non-vital spot. They are either not completely trained or want me alive. Sakura flash-stepped in front of her opponent and then teleported them away from Shisui's apartment so as not to destroy it. She dropped them straight into an Anbu training ground and sighed in relief as she spotted Itachi and Shisui. Her relief was short-lived when her enemy swiped with a poisoned kunai, forcing her to release their wrist. She dodged and ducked. The black-clad figure was much faster than her and it took everything she had to not be hit. Shisui and Itachi both tried to join the fray but found themselves faced with 2 opponents of their own. A sucker punch to the jaw had Sakura's vision swimming. She charged chakra to her fist and punched the ground as she was about to land. The impact knocked over the 2 enemies Shisui and Itachi were fighting and gave them the upper hand. Sakura was propelled slightly higher into the air and her feet didn't even hit the ground before her adversary flash-stepped next to her and roundhouse kicked her clear across the field. She crashed through 4 trees before she landed in an unconscious heap on the ground. Blood was dripping out of her mouth, ears, nose, and several other places on her body. Sakura snapped her eyes open and jerked into a sitting position. She groaned as the motion made her feel nauseous and dizzy at the same time. What happened? A cool hand rested on her forehead and her eyes focused on the figure in front of her. Tsunade-sama, what are you doing here? Tsunade withdrew her glowing hand and stood up. Let's take this to my office. Chichi bring Sakura, Itachi go get Sasuke. With that, she disappeared in a cloud of smoke and Itachi followed her lead. Sakura looked up at Shisui with a confused expression. How long was I out? What happened? He picked her up, body taut with tension. All your questions will be answered shortly. I'm glad you're alright. He pressed his nose into her temple briefly before teleporting. Report. I don't want any details left out. Tsunade snapped. Team 1, Kakashi, Shikamaru, and Naruto were all crowded into the room. Shisui glanced at Sakura and she took this as her cue to start the narrative. I arrived at Shisui Taiko's apartment around 2 a.m. and noticed that he was not home. I opened the door to leave and came face to face with a masked figure. The assailant was wearing all black, but the cloak had a few red clouds on it. He was obviously out of my league, so I decided to teleport us out of the apartment so we didn't damage it. When we arrived at Training Ground 34, Itachi and Shisui were there. I engaged my enemy as two others attacked my teammates. He was much quicker than me, getting a solid hit in. I slammed my fist into the ground as I was landing to create a diversion, but he saw right through it. I was roundhouse kicked, and I don't remember anything after that. Sakura finished her portion as Naruto growled and cussed the unknown assailant. Shisui stepped forward to give his account next. The opponents we fought were very similar, if not the same to the one Sakura fought. When Sakura and the man appeared in the clearing, Itachi and I tried to step in. We were immediately cut off by two men dressed in the same cloaks. They held their ground against us but were caught off guard when Sakura punched the ground. We took them out just as Sakura was knocked unconscious, or we thought we did. They should have been dead, Hokage-sama. However, when we attempted to engage the original enemy, all three of them surrounded Sakura and instructed us to freeze or she would be killed. Shisui stopped talking, jaw tightly clenched. Itachi stepped forward and continued the report flawlessly. They stated they are part of a group called Akatsuki and told us to stay away from Orochimaru. They said it would be a shame if any accidents were to happen because of our investigation. The silence in the room was stifling. Kakashi stepped forward and gained everyone's attention. Hokage-same, Kabuto has been killed and his body is decaying at an alarming rate. After the reports that were just given, I think it's safe to assume that these individuals took matters into their own hands. His back was rigid, posture completely straight, making Sakura flinch. It wasn't often that she saw this side of Kakashi. He was just as intimidating as the men she was teamed up with, a finely tuned weapon of destruction. Tsunade rubbed her temples and sighed. I guess this means that Team 1 has an additional objective: find out as much about the Akatsuki as possible. Jiraiya strolled into the room with a smug look on his face and stated, I can help with that. A giant scroll landed on the desk in front of Tsunade and everyone's eyes glued onto it when he started to peel it open. Sakura rubbed her forehead in frustration and let out an exasperated groan. She hadn't slept in over 24 hours now, and she didn't see that happening anytime soon. Jiraiya was currently debriefing the room full of shinobi about the Akatsuki, and Sakura found her newfound faith in her abilities dwindling. These individuals are strong enough to go against the elite. What chance does Konoha have against them? She looked around at the people surrounding her and smiled. Tsunade noticed the look on her apprentice's face and raised an eyebrow questioningly. What on earth has you smiling at a time like this, Sakura? Sakura balked as everyone turned to look at her and then gazed fondly at each of them one by one. This might be a tough fight, but we can win. I felt hopeless at first, but I believe in all of you. I believe in Konoha and in the ninja here. We can do this. We just need a plan. Jiraiya can give us an advantage. As she spoke, the tension in the room decreased. Several smiles flashed in her direction and then Jiraiya was speaking again. This is the information I have on the members so far. A scroll was passed around with names, photos, and information on jutsu. I've seen some of them battle, but I haven't been able to find many weaknesses as of yet. It should be easy for us to analyze what I've found with the help of the Nara. Shikamaru groaned loudly and walked closer to the desk. He looked up at Jiraiya and mumbled about troublesome work before nodding his head in agreement. All right, I'll inform the council of the attack and start preparing a task force. Kakashi, inform Ibiki that the village is on level 2 lockdown. Itachi, Inform Anbu of what has occurred and set a meeting up with myself and the clan heads. Shisui, take Sakura home and make sure she rests for at least 16 hours. Sakura, you and I will meet to talk about triage for the medic nin tents tomorrow. Tsunade stood up and grabbed a binder from one of her shelves and handed it to Shikamaru. Sakura snorted at her Shisho's orders. She placed her hand on Shisui's forearm and squeezed gently, fingernails gently scraping his skin. Are you ready to head out? I'm exhausted. Let's go then. I have strict orders to make sure you rest. He gave her a tender smile and intertwined his fingers with hers. She blushed furiously and let him lead her out of the building. Her eyes were glued to their clasped hands as he led her through the village at a slow, even pace. She glanced up and noticed he was watching her out of the corner of his eye. She met his gaze boldly and raised an eyebrow at him. He stopped abruptly, and Sakura grimaced at the gaping hole in his apartment where a door should be. I can pay for that. Don't worry about it. I'm just happy you're okay. However, remind me not to piss you off when we get a house. Shisui's casual mention of the future had Sakura choking on air. She started coughing so loudly that Shisui rubbed her back and bent down to look her in the face. Sakura, I was joking, a little. I know it's too early to talk about those things. She nodded quickly and wiped the tears from her eyes. We can stay at my place until this gets fixed. Sakura's large eyes met his. A mischievous smirk appeared on his face and Sakura narrowed her eyes suspiciously. Discover more. Fan fiction app. Crossover story collections. Author promotion services. My place is bigger so you'll move in with me. I'll get Yamato to fix the door today, and we'll get all of your things this week. Also, we'll speak with your landlord and I'll pay the fee to have your contract broken. Sakura's jaw hit the floor. What? You said we should take it slow. This is not slow. How the hell do you expect me to? Sakura, I do want to take it slow. However, you were just attacked by someone who bested both Itachi and myself. I don't want you alone. You're closer to the Uchiha district here and I can keep an eye on you. I know it's extremely sudden but please, do this for me. He took her face in his hands and stared into her eyes with an unfathomable look. His thumb grazed her cheek, trying to put all his emotions into the small motion. Fine, but don't think this means I can't move out whenever I want. He broke out into a blinding smile and covered her lips with his own. The kiss was innocent and gentle, filled with emotions left unspoken. Sakura sighed and leaned into him, finally allowing the tension to bleed from her body. Her fingers rested over his heart tenderly, clinging to the unspoken promises. He ran his thumbs down her cheeks and hooked them under her jaw, tilting her face up. He pulled back mere centimeters and stared into her eyes. Their breath mingled and Sakura's entire body flooded with heat. Shisui's eyes were so close she could see flecks of different shades of black and brown. Someone cleared their throat next to them and Sakura jumped in embarrassment, hands flying to cover her burning face. Sakura woke up feeling disoriented yet oddly safe. What happened last night? I don't remember anything after Yamato-san fixed the door. A body shifted next to hers and she froze. Warm, scarred arms wrapped around her waist and she relaxed momentarily before spinning to meet the sleepy, onyx eyes behind her. Questions later. Sleep more, he said in a groggy, thick voice and buried his head in her neck. She stifled a giggle at just how much he hated mornings and pulled the blanket up to her chin. His hot breath against her clavicle had her toes tingling. The next time she woke up was less confusing. I'll just have to ask him what the hell happened. She sat up and rubbed her eyes tiredly. She threw her bare legs over the side and stared at them in confusion. I don't remember taking my pants off, or changing my shirt. Shisui leisurely walked out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel and Sakura's mouth ran dry, thoughts forgotten. Her eyes followed a few water droplets that ran from his neck all the way down between his carved abs, being stopped by his happy trail. His eyes met hers briefly before he continued to his closet, confidently giving her a nice view of his muscled back. His muscles rippled with each step he took and Sakura ogled him as much as she could. She snapped her eyes shut when his towel dropped but not before she caught a glimpse of his sculpted ass. She kept her eyes closed for what felt like an eternity until she felt the bed dip beside her. She peeled her eyes open and stared at the steam coming from the bathroom, shivering when Shisui's breath ruffled her hair. She held her shirt down and halfway turned to look at him. His hair was an unruly mess, making his shirtless state all the more tantalizing. Sakura had to tear her eyes away from his torso to meet his eyes. Does he have to smile like that? I feel like I'm melting. Good morning, I'm glad you like what you see. He winked at her and mussed her hair before pulling her into a tight hug. His chin rested on her head and her now heated cheek was against his broad chest. Shisui, what happened after Yamato-san fixed the door? I can't really remember anything after that. Sakura fidgeted as she spoke and pulled her face from his chest. Oh my Kami, he smells good. The smile slowly faded from his face, and he looked at her as if searching for something. His large hand covered hers and stopped her fidgeting. Do you really not remember what happened? When she shook her head no, he ran a hand through his hair and glanced away. While she waited for him to explain, she took the hand still covering hers and started tracing his small scars. He watched her intently, startling her when he asked a simple question that made her freeze. Sakura, how long have you had nightmares? She was silent so long that he got impatient and forced her to meet his gaze with a hand under her chin. The raised eyebrow and intense look made her swallow hard. A while now. I don't really like killing people, even if they deserve it. Was it that bad? I put you under with my Sharingan. You were hysterical. The only thing I could understand was Orochimaru and something about Sasuke. Is there something I should know? Oh, that dream. That one is old, don't worry about it. The sharp look he gave her had her quickly spilling the story. During the Chunin exams, my team was attacked by Orochimaru and it was terrifying. Before he could do anything serious, a few masked Anbu members stepped in and saved us. However, he had already said and done quite a few things that scarred our young psyches. Shisui froze for a moment and then brushed her hair out of face. I forgot that it was your team we saved. I won't let him do anything to you, Sakura. I protect what's mine. You were the one who saved us. He nodded once at Sakura's question and she threw her arms around his neck and thanked him profusely. He frowned when he saw the indecisive look on her face as she pulled away. Shisui, I need you to understand something. While I love that you're protective over me, it also pisses me off. It isn't because I don't appreciate it, don't get me wrong. I was really weak when I was younger and always had to be protected. I've grown a lot, but my lack of strength has always been an insecurity of mine. I can protect myself, and I feel inadequate when others try to protect me. Before Sakura could blink, she found herself pinned to the bed with Shisui above her, smirking deviously. He lowered his head and traced her jaw with his lips before speaking softly. I'm glad you love it because it will be happening frequently. When his nose reached her earlobe, he caught it with his teeth and teased the skin with his tongue. She gasped at the sensation and tried to squirm out of his grip. He pinned both of her hands above her head with one hand and used the other to keep her head still. I'm stronger than you, Sakura. That's just how it is. I'm protective and that is never going to change. Don't let it piss you off. Not many people earn the right to be protected so thoroughly by me. I don't think you're weak, but that doesn't mean I'm going to let you be put in harm's way. I'll let you fight, but there are some battles I'd rather keep you out of, for my own peace of mind. Do you want me getting hurt because I'm focused on your battle instead of mine? The hand holding her face sluggishly moved down her neck and stopped to rest between her s. Her chest was heaving and he pulled away to look at her face. You don't fight fair, Shisui. Of course I don't want you to get hurt because of me, but she lost her train of thought when he meticulously started moving his hand down her stomach towards the edge of her slightly lifted nightshirt. He met her eyes as his fingers grazed the skin right above her underwear. You were saying. Her face flushed darkly as his long fingers teased her bare skin. She gasped as he started kissing her neck with the same lazy tempo as his hands and once again tried to speak. Shisui, I don't think. Knock knock knock. Shisui froze and turned his head to look at his closed door. Itachi's chuckle could be heard before he spoke. Shisui, mother wants Sakura to come over before she gets busy with the Hokage. Sakura, you have to be at the Hokage Tower right after lunch. Sakura stared, transfixed by her boyfriend's red eyes, and let a small smile break through when he met her gaze. He glowered once more before whispering, "This conversation is far from over." She yelped as he nipped her jaw and rolled off of her. He did it so quickly that she almost missed the bulge in his pants. Almost. She fled to the bathroom when he threw her another heated look and could hear him chuckle. Makoto ushered Sakura into the house and forced Itachi and Shisui to leave. Honestly, Shisui, she needs some girl time. Stop hogging all of her time or I'll stop buying you dango. Shisui gasped in horror and quickly kissed Sakura on the forehead before heading out with Itachi. Sakura, how have you been? I heard about what happened the other night. Makoto poured tea for the two of them and Sakura let herself relax. I've been stressed, honestly. I've had far too many near-death experiences for me to be comfortable with. It's been a little overwhelming, and I kind of miss the days when I was working at the hospital. That being said, I wouldn't take my decision back. I feel like I'm able to be part of something bigger. Makoto nodded as she spoke. You've had us all worried lately. Shisui was an absolute terror when your team came back. He went after the council with a savagery I've rarely seen. Sakura raised an eyebrow and Makoto smiled deviously. It was very comical. The council wanted to talk with him after they found out about your relations or lack thereof. Needless to say, he was furious but handled it tactfully. Well, don't hold anything out. Tell me what happened. Sakura's curiosity made Makoto chuckle. Of course, I'm going to tell you everything. You're practically family already. Don't tell anyone I told you. Sakura nodded and smirked at the lady who felt like a second mother to her. Well, they called Shisui in and made him sit through a few marriage proposals. He declined as politely as possible, telling them that he was already pursuing someone else. That was basically the whole first day. Then, they tried to tell him why you weren't a good fit for the Uchiha clan. Makoto held a hand up to stop Sakura from interrupting. Fugaku, Itachi, and I immediately stood up for you, but the council kept at it until he basically snapped at them. He proceeded to blackmail them and question their decisions for the Uchiha clan. He called them out for every illegitimate child, allocation of funds, civil unrest, and such. He named all of your mentors, abilities, and successes and had his Mangekyo activated the entire time. You could hear a pin drop after that tirade. He told them that if they had a problem with his relations with you that they could fight you for the right to be at his side, however, if they hurt you then they would have to answer to him. Makoto watched as Sakura's eyes grew wide. Both women started laughing hysterically. Sakura rushed into Tsunade's office and immediately started apologizing. I am so sorry, Lady Tsunade, I got caught up talking with Makoto-sama and we lost track of time. She fell into her seat and pushed her messy hair out of her face. She met Tsunade's gaze and flinched at the look she was given. You are an hour late, Sakura. I know, I'm really sorry. Sakura ducked her head in shame but straightened up when Tsunade sighed. Alright, let's talk about what we should do for the medic's tents. Sakura nodded and pulled a chair up next to the desk. Hours later, Sakura shook her tingling hand out and Tsunade sighed loudly. Well, this should work. I think we have a decent blueprint of what we want, As she spoke, she stood up and stretched. Sakura followed suit and looked outside. We finished faster than I thought we would. Do you want to go out for dinner, Shisho? It would be fun and it feels like it's been ages. Let's do it. I'll go get Shizune and we can have a get-together. After telling a few select people about the dinner, Sakura found herself rubbing her head and questioning why everyone she knew was at the grill. All the tables were full with the Konoha 9, Team Guy, the Jonin to each team, Jiraiya, and Tamari and Kankuro. The party was in full swing by the time everyone got food and the whole back of the restaurant was reserved for the unruly group. Sake was flowing freely and everyone was enjoying themselves. Sasuke and Naruto managed to pull Sakura aside, literally dragging her away from a conversation with Shino and Kiba. Hey guys, what have you been up to? Nay, we miss you, Sakura-chan. We never get to see you anymore. Sasuke nodded his head in agreement and Sakura laughed. Come on guys, I'll buy us some drinks. They went over to the bar and drank until none of them could see straight. When Itachi and Shisui finally arrived at the grill, the sight they walked in on had them chuckling. Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruto were all sitting at the bar leaning on one another. Naruto was being woken up by Hinata and Sakura was stroking Sasuke's hair. The two older Uchiha snuck up on them and ended up eavesdropping. Sakura, does Shishi make you happy? And Don sugar cut it, I'll beat his ashy VN if he my cousin. You know Tachi would help. He squinted his eyes, thinking that would help him speak more clearly. What kind equation is that, Sasu? Yesh, he makes me happy. He is different than any UFF the guys have talked to befer but he's sheet in his own way. And hesh hot. Good, I ju want you be happy. I know we had our ups and downs when we young but you family. Gotta make sure that it is doing right by you. The two were slurring their words slightly and Sakura hiccuped every once in a while. When Itachi and Shisui made their presence known, the two looked at them in confusion. Itachi grabbed Sasuke and piggybacked him home. Shisui picked up Sakura, giving her a contemplating look. Sakura, the next time you decide to get stupid drunk, tell me first. I'll make sure to be here before the serious conversations start. She looked at him groggily and then fell asleep in his arms. Tsunade stopped him before he could carry the unconscious girl out. Chi-Chi, you and I are going to have a very serious talk soon. Take care of my girl or I'll forget about the time you helped me out. Shisui smirked. Of course, Hokage-sama. I look forward to our chat and I can promise you, she'll be well taken care of. Sakura awoke midday with a note taped to her face. She peeled it off her forehead with a grimace and read it with one eye open. Sakura, we still have training to do. Meet me at training ground 3, near the river. Shisui. Sakura stretched and rolled out of her bed. At least he put me in my bed this time. I should mentally prepare to get my butt thoroughly kicked today. There is no doubt in my mind that he is about to be a pain in the rear after our last mission. She pulled on a tight red tank top that complemented her bust and a pair of black spandex shorts. Her short hair still wouldn't fit into a ponytail and she sighed as she fixed her forehead protector. I'll use a few bobby pins to pull my bangs away from my face. Once she was sure Ino would approve of her hair, she ran out the door and ran straight into Itachi, knocking them both down. Oh, crap, I'm so sorry, Itachi. Are you alright? I'm such a klutz. Sakura picked him up with her superhuman strength and started dusting off his clothing. He quickly stopped her as she tried to brush off his pants, both wrists being snagged by his nimble fingers. Sakura, I'm fine. Be more careful next time and don't ever manhandle me like that again. She laughed so hard at his appalled face that she got a stitch in her side and passerbyers stared at her in concern. Sorry, I just get carried away sometimes. What brings you here? Itachi glared at her as she wiped away tears from her eyes and patted his black Anbu pants clean. Shisui and I just finished training, He sent me to wake you up if you weren't already on your way. I must warn you, something has him in a mood and he is being quite brutal. She flinched and thanked him for the warning. Do you know what made him so upset? Itachi glanced at her from the side of his eyes as both of them started walking. He spoke with me, but I don't think he told me everything. Once he figures out what he needs to know, he'll share more. However, it isn't my dilemma to share. Sorry, Pinky. Sakura huffed at the nickname and swatted his arm. Itachi laughed good-naturedly and the two went their separate ways. Sakura took to the rooftops and sped through the village. She waved and smiled at many of the ninjas who recognized her and was joined by Kakashi. Good afternoon, Sakura. I didn't think you would be awake before dinner time, he chuckled as she shot him a glare. I should never tell you my stories, Kakashi-sensei, you get too much fun out of them. He shot her an innocent look. Who, me? I would never. How dare you insinuate that I laugh at your misadventures when it comes to drinking? He winked and then turned towards the Hokage Tower. She smiled at his receding back and continued on. When she arrived at the training grounds, a frown marred her face. Shisui was sitting on a charred log and the training ground was unrecognizable. There was a mile radius that had nothing but burnt ground and nubs for trees, and steam was rising from the slightly lower river. She stared at the man in front of her with weary eyes, the tomo of his Sharingan spun widely and she tensed. She met his gaze apprehensively. Taiko, what will we be training on today? He tilted his head to the side but made no indication that the spar was going to start. She slowly walked towards him and sat on a log a distance away, just in case. She had to look up to see him and it was clear he was struggling internally. She opened her mouth to speak again but snapped it shut when he leaned forward and covered his face with his hands. When he finally looked up again, his eyes and face were completely devoid of any emotions. Today, we will be working on strength and speed with taijutsu only. No chakra enhancements. He stood up fluidly and offered her a hand. She took it hesitantly and her worry was written all over her face. Shisui. Not right now, Sakura. Training first. We'll talk later when I have things figured out. He released her hand and backed away from her. Instead of getting in a ready stance, she crossed her arms and glared at him. Shisui, we're together. We're supposed to help one another figure things out. You don't have to shut me out like this. He stared at her impassively and she found herself growing more frustrated. She threw her hands in the air and swirled to storm off, but Shisui appeared in front of her and halted her progress. Haruno, we have training to do. She stiffened at how he addressed her and nodded once. Hi, Taiko. As soon as she backed away and got in a ready stance, he flash-stepped in front of her. It was so fast that she could only guard herself and take the blow. She immediately healed the small fractures in her arms as she flew through the air. When her feet touched the ground, Shisui was behind her. She ducked under his flying leg and tried to sweep his other leg out from under him. He altered his movements mid-kick and flipped over her before her leg connected. She growled and gracefully blocked the punches that were coming at her with lightning speed. She back-flipped when he aimed a kick at her head and felt the wind past her nose. Her foot connected with his outstretched leg as she flipped and the two halted their motions for a mere second. She was breathing hard and frowned at how he seemed unaffected by their spar. He pisses me off so much. I'll have to come up with a plan to shake him a little. The two flash-stepped towards one another again and the sound of flesh hitting flesh could be heard. She sent a roundhouse kick towards his abdomen and he quickly caught it. Too slow. He picked her up by the captured leg and threw her towards the river. Once they backed up until they were both standing on the water, Sakura came up with a plan. She allowed her movements to slow down enough for it to seem that she was fatigued and allowed Shisui to catch her in the ribs with a nasty blow. The kick had so much force that she flew a good 500 meters down the river and started to sink. When she didn't emerge after about 30 seconds, Shisui jogged over to where she went under and dove in after her. Her body was resting on the bottom of the riverbed and he rapidly pulled her onto the shore. He gently moved the wet hair from her face. Sakura. Sakura. Wake up. I know you've been hit harder than that before. When she didn't respond, he placed his head over her heart and listened. Sakura took the opportunity to flip him over and pin him down. The smirk on her lips matched the one on his. She frowned in confusion and he started to laugh. That was very good, however, he flipped her over and pinned her down. I was expecting it. When he stood up and offered her his hand yet again, she frowned. He sighed and sat down next to her. I have a lot going on right now and there are some things that I'm not allowed to speak about. You know this better than anyone. She sighed and looked at the river in front of them. Shisui, you're so moody and secretive. I don't know much about you and what I do know are things that I've observed. He started picking leaves out of her hair and she closed her eyes, giving him time to gather his thoughts. We'll have to fix that then. How about a date? Her eyes flew open and met his. She could see the happiness on his face and she smiled brightly. I would love that. A mischievous smirk stretched across his face. I don't like that look, Shisui Uchiha. What are you thinking? He leaned in close so that his breath ghosted over her ear and gave her goosebumps. You still owe me a favor and I think I'll be using it rather soon. He leaned back and watched as her eyes grew slightly larger with worry. You're still holding that over me even though we're together. He laughed loudly at her pouty mood and took her hand, the tender motion not matching the mischievous glint to his eyes. Even though, Sakura, I'm especially holding it over you now that we're together. It makes for good leverage. The wink he sent her made her flush brightly, which, in turn, made him laugh harder. Before she could pull her thoughts together, he leaned in and kissed her heatedly. Team 1 stood in the Hokage's office and Sakura understood a little bit of what had Shisui in such a foul mood. Gaara was seated next to the Hokage, forms spilling over the large desk. Sakura shot him a discreet smile. It's good to see you, Kazekage-sama. It has been far too long. He inclined his head with a smile of his own. Likewise, Sakura, and please, don't be so formal. We all have a long discussion ahead of us and it might be best for the four of you to get comfortable. Lady Tsunade nodded her agreement with the statement and everyone took a seat. Shisui gave her a glance that made her shudder before turning his full attention to the cage in front of them. Great. He's jealous of my friends with Gaara now. Sakura swallowed thickly and decided to ignore everyone except the village leaders. We had a breakthrough with Danzo and his unique circumstances. This is both good and bad. We learned a lot more about him just from figuring out the seal than we thought. It has not been completely removed, but it has been identified, and we are close to figuring out how to take it off. Tsunade paused and looked at Gaara expectantly. The bad news is that I personally recognize the seal. It is one that is used for Jinchuriki hosts when they are preparing to become a vessel. The information sunk in and Sakura couldn't stay quiet any longer, speaking her mind openly. Danzo, that sneaky, rat bastard. He must be working with the Akatsuki, too. If what Jiraiya said was correct, we all know it is, then he must be in cahoots with those cloud freaks. That means Naruto and Gaara are targets and Danzo is exactly where he wants to be. Her eyes clashed with Tsunade's stormy ones and the room was deathly silent. Sakura, your brilliance is one of the reasons I took you on as my apprentice. As happy as I am to know the type of genius you are, I wish you were wrong on this, but that is the conclusion that we came to, as well. Tsunade rubbed her temples and mumbled something that only Gaara understood. He looked up at Sakura and nodded once to the Hokage. Gaara folded his arms slowly while staring at the pink-haired Kunoichi. She stared back curiously and was very aware of the 3 pairs of eyes glaring into her back. Now the crux of the situation, what to do about the information we have gained. He does not know that we figured out his secret. We made sure that he thought we had no idea what we were doing. Before you ask, I've been here a while. Lady Tsunade asked me to come as soon as she became suspicious of the markings that were hidden under the seal. He stood and faced the glass wall behind him. Sakura slumped into her seat and everyone could see the wheels turning in her head. Shisui leaned forward and placed his elbows on his knees, mulling over all that he'd heard. If we make the wrong move, Akatsuki will retaliate. If we do not act soon enough, something catastrophic could happen. We could always try using the Sharingan on him. I know the eyes on his arm won't help him counteract the Mangekyo, or we could just kill him. Tsunade chuckled and shouted for Shizune to come into the room. What has the task force come up with? Sakura glanced up in time to see Itachi and Shisui share a wary glance. Milady, I think it would be best for them to tell you themselves. I'll go get the ones that aren't already present. Shizune walked out and Sakura raised an eyebrow curiously. The room stayed quiet until Shikamaru, Kakashi, and Ibiki entered. Shisui stood up and joined them. Shikamaru stuffed his hands in his pockets and leaned forward excitedly. We've come up with the perfect plan for Danzo. Here's what we need to do. Sakura didn't fail to notice the rigid lines of Shisui's back, jaw clenching tighter the more Shikamaru spoke. He is completely against this plan. Ah, crap. Sakura jogged down the halls that led to the interrogation rooms. This has to be executed perfectly or we're all screwed. She made a left turn and burst into the interrogation room that held Ibiki and Danzo. Hokage-sama needs you right now. Sakura leaned forward and grabbed her knees as she caught her breath. Ibiki rushed past her and she was left alone with Danzo. Well, isn't this a nice surprise? Just the person I was hoping to see. The door slammed shut behind her and she froze. What do you want, traitor? Sakura spat. Oh, nothing too strenuous. I have a gift for you from a certain Sannin. Before Sakura could react, Danzo pinned her to the wall with a hand on her throat. His slimy teeth were level with her eyes, giving her a disgusting view. What the? He shouldn't be able to move at all. He's draining my chakra somehow. In a desperate attempt to break his hold, Sakura used a move that she had been taught in her first few weeks of training with Shisui. She balled her body up as tight as possible and then shot her legs at his chest with all her force. He stumbled backwards, and she landed on the floor with a thud, head bouncing on the floor. OWWWWWE. She scrambled upright, squinting at her opponent. Ah, you depend on your chakra so much that without it you'll be powerless against me. It's a pity, really. He placed his chair closer towards the door and sat in it. If you're going to kill me, then just get it over with. Sakura, why would I kill you? As much as I would love to hear you beg for mercy and watch the light drain from your pretty eyes, you're necessary in our plan. Tell me, why is the cage here? Sakura winced, rubbing the back of her head. Why would I tell you anything, ya rat bastard? In a flash, he was in front of her again, speaking in a menacing tone. Just because I can't kill you doesn't mean I am not allowed to make you scream. I know plenty of ways to make you squeal, bitch. She met his cold gaze fiercely. You would never succeed in breaking me. I will never give the likes of you information on Konoha. A wicked smile slowly spread across his face. You will break, and I'll enjoy every second of it. You'll betray your village, and we'll obtain power you could never imagine. No one will survive except for those who are on his side. You would do well to join us because no matter what you decide, you will still be kept for our use. He frowned when she didn't show any signs of fear. She leaned in closer so that she was a hair's breadth away from him. What could the Akatsuki have that would defeat Konoha? We have the most powerful clans, alliances, and Jinchuriki on our side. He laughed loudly and Sakura flinched backwards. Only 2 Jinchuriki are left, little girl. They will soon be ours and we will have the most powerful weapon. There is nothing any of you could do here that we would not see, we have eyes everywhere. He backed away, dragging his chair to its previous position and sitting down. How can you be so confident? You have to know that you'll lose. What do you gain from this? How naive you are. Even if Akatsuki loses, I still win. Konoha could not withstand 2 attacks back to back. If they fall, I will rise in their stead. I'm confident because I'm careful and I know Konoha better than anyone. Ibiki suddenly opened the door and froze at what he saw. Haruno, what are you still doing here? She met his suspicious gaze and stiffened. He stalked towards her and looked between her and the prisoner. Yamanaka, take Haruno to an empty room. In fact, make it the room that we would hold high-level threats in. A blonde male walked in and roughly grabbed Sakura by the arm. Her protests could be heard clear across the compound. What the hell do you think you're doing? Get your grubby hands off of me. I didn't do anything wrong. That bastard wouldn't let me leave the room. After sitting in the chakra-suppressing cell for what felt like hours, the Yamanaka male came back to release her. She raised an eyebrow at his suspiciously different demeanor. Yamanaka-san, are you alright? You are acting much more subdued than before. He surprised her when he bowed at the waist. Haruno-san, I apologize for distressing you and for bruising your arm when I brought you here. I beg your forgiveness. She was speechless as she walked up to the man. When their eyes met again, she smiled softly. Don't worry about it, I've had much worse than a mere bruise. You didn't hurt me and we both had to keep our facade going, no apologies necessary. The man walked her all the way to the Hokage's office and apologized once again before leaving her to enter by herself. I wonder what that was all about, he looks like he saw a ghost or something. She opened the door without knocking and smiled knowingly at her shisho. It is done. Now what? Sakura's question made Tsunade roll her eyes in slight annoyance. Sakura, you know damn well that all we can do is wait, and for the record, I won't let him get his grimy hands on you. She glared out the window as she spoke and Sakura smiled. She turned to leave and almost ran straight into Itachi, again. Can you please not appear right behind me? You weren't too happy with the results last time. He didn't say a word but his eyes zoned in on the bruise on her upper arm. She narrowed her eyes as he stepped around her to talk with the Hokage. Itachi, do you know why Yamanaka-san was acting so subdued when he released me from the cell? Tsunade snickered as Itachi shot her a glance from the corner of his eye. She rolled her eyes when he smirked before walking out of the office. As if Shisui isn't already protective enough. I didn't think Itachi would be the same way towards me. Well, maybe it's more for Shisui than it is for myself. Sakura-chan. Sakura looked up just in time to be engulfed in a bear hug by Naruto. She smiled fondly as he put her down and noticed Hinata standing behind him. Good evening Naruto, Hinata-chan. What are you two up to? They blushed at the question and Sakura smiled knowingly. Naruto gently took Hinata's hand and pulled her closer. Sakura-chan, we've finally made it official, and I wanted to tell you in person. Hinata-chan is my girlfriend now. Sakura squealed and hugged them. It's about time, Baka. She's been waiting on you for forever. Hinata giggled and nodded her agreement. Well, you two have a nice night. Naruto, you better act like a gentleman or I'll kick your ass. Sakura made her way to the Hokage monument and sat down to enjoy a quiet sunset. She heard a noise and WPED around to see who or what was behind her. Gaara gave her an odd look and she let out a nervous giggle. Sorry Gaara-san, I guess I've just been on edge lately. He nodded and sat next to her. She stiffened minutely, feeling eyes lock onto them and was certain Gaara felt it, too. How is Suna doing? It's been a while since I visited. Yes, it has been too long since you graced us with your company. We are doing well, however, I am very worried about the Akatsuki and their plans. I don't like being away so long. If anything happens, Konoha will be right beside you to protect your village. She leaned back onto her elbows and closed her eyes, enjoying the sun on her skin. She now felt two pairs of eyes on her but once again chose to ignore it. I heard you have joined Anbu. I wouldn't have thought you would. She peeked an eye open at the unstated question, meeting his gaze. I joined because I was needed. Why can you not see me joining? He turned back towards the sun and pulled a knee up to rest his arm on. You're kind, Sakura. Too kind for a shinobi. I just don't see you doing the dirty jobs, nor do I see Tsunade asking you to do them. I've been told that before. You are right about that. I won't do the dirty jobs and Tsunade wouldn't ask me to unless it was absolutely necessary. I'm more of a team player in this operation. Healing and data collecting are my main priorities. She ran her hand through her hair and fidgeted as the feeling of being watched intensified. It was quiet for a few moments before Gaara said something that made her blush deeply. You and the Uchiha are together. It wasn't a question, but she felt the need to nod in agreement. He stared into her eyes for a long moment and then turned his head to look behind them. Her mouth popped open in astonishment at his next statement. You can come out, Uchiha. You've made your presence quite obvious. Shisui walked up and sat on the other side of Sakura, unperturbed. The rest of the sunset was watched in silence, and Sakura couldn't help but feel slightly uncomfortable. Gaara gave her a knowing look and stood, offering her his hand. She took it and gave him a warm smile. Gaara-san, how long are you expected in the village? Another few days, why? She gave him a mischievous smile. It has been too long since we sparred. Would you like to before you leave? He nodded and left without another word. Sakura started walking home without looking to see if her companion was following. She heard him sigh quietly and darted her eyes up to his as he fell in step next to her. Their eyes locked momentarily before she returned her eyes back to the road in front of her. His hand engulfed hers and pulled her closer to his side. She looked up as he dropped her hand but quickly flushed as he slipped his arm around her waist. He gave her a smirk before the two disappeared in a puff of smoke and appeared in his kitchen. She swayed slightly after the sudden change and he hugged her to him, nuzzling his nose into her neck. I'm sorry. His whispered apology made all the tension she felt melt away. She closed her eyes and returned his embrace. Shisui, don't be jealous of Gaara. He's a long-time, close friend and I will hang out with him. He looked into her determined eyes and rolled his own. Fine, but don't be surprised if I show up whenever you two are together. She leaned up on her tiptoes and kissed his cheek sweetly without breaking eye contact. A slight blush warmed his cheeks and he cleared his throat before speaking. Shall we cook? Sakura's eyes popped open and she threw the blanket over her face with a startled squeak. The bed dipped under her and she felt, more than heard Shisui's deep chuckle. She peeked over the covers so that only her eyes could be seen. Why are you in my room so early in the morning? You don't even like mornings. He raised an eyebrow at her grumpy tone. I've been up for a while now. Take a shower and wear something that I bought you. She sat up suddenly and the blankets fell down to her waist, gaining Shisui's full attention. His eyes held hers for a moment before slowly roving over her body. Her tight top did nothing to hide her figure and she blushed, slowly pulling the blanket back up to cover herself. His suddenly red eyes followed every motion and then met hers again once she was covered. She cleared her throat before asking, are we going to an Uchiha function? He reached out and caressed her cheek with the tips of his fingers. Something like that, don't be alarmed. He ran his thumb over her bottom lip before leaning in and capturing her lips with his own. She dropped the blanket and wrapped her arms around his neck, shivering as warm hands gripped her s. He nipped her lip and ran his tongue over it to soothe the slight sting after she let out a small whimper. She gasped when he yanked her onto his lap and tore her lips away from his, overwhelmed by the onslaught of feelings. He took the opportunity to admire her thick thighs straddling his lap and slid his hands over the smooth skin. His eyes traveled up her body until their eyes met, her slightly swollen lips were parted and her eyes were glazed over with passion. His hands didn't stop until they slid over her butt and he watched her eyes close as he squeezed, pulling her closer to him. He laid a kiss just above her S and sensually nipped, kissed, and licked his way up to her ear. She squirmed and tried to stifle small noises of pleasure. She felt his erection under her and blushed furiously when she realized just how she affected him. His hot breath ghosted over her ear as he whispered, "Sakura, if you don't go into the bathroom right now, we won't make it out of this bed." He peeled his hands away from her and groaned loudly when she slid off of his lap. She paused in the doorway and glanced back at Shisui. His eyes were hungrily wandering over her body. When his eyes finally met hers, she blushed darkly and he flopped down heavily on the bed. "Damn it, Sakura. Just close the door already." She flushed as the bulge in his pants became more apparent and did as he said. When she came out of the bathroom, her bed was made and the scroll that held her gifts was sitting open. She ran her fingers over the edge and read the names of the different items. "Well, I'll just start with the first outfit and keep the others a surprise for myself." She quickly did the hand signs to release the first article of clothing. The breathtaking kimono was pale pink with lavender flower clusters. The obi was the same pale pink. Sakura ran her hand over the material and let out a wistful sigh at how expensive the cloth felt. She unfolded it meticulously and paused as wrapping became visible with a note sitting on top. She opened it hesitantly and blushed at what was written. "Sakura, how could I give you a beautiful new outfit without giving you something to match underneath? I hope to see you in these." Shisui. She sat the note down and slowly peeled open the wrapping to unveil a matching set of underclothes. The bra crisscrossed in the back and was a light pastel pink with lavender lace on the straps and edges. The underwear was cut to be cheeky and was also a light pastel pink with lavender lace on the edges. Sakura, being a sucker for nice underwear, squealed and jerked them on without hesitation. She walked back into the bathroom and admired how well they sculpted to her body. "I guess the Sharingan has its perks. He'll always know if something is going to fit. I wonder what made him buy me lingerie before we were even together." Sakura finished getting ready and walked downstairs. She paused as she exited the stairs and gaped at the people in the room. Sasuke and Itachi were closest to her and she openly gawked at how handsome they looked. They were both wearing deep navy blue yukatas, but Sasuke had a gray obi and Itachi had a black obi. Sasuke caught her staring and sent her a panty-dropping smirk before getting Itachi's attention. Itachi glanced at her and gave her a reassuring smile. Sakura smiled back and forced herself to look at the other three people in the living room. Fugaku was standing next to Makoto and they were having a heated conversation. His yukata was a light blue with a pale gray obi. Makoto's kimono was a deep red with swirls of black splattered throughout that matched her delicate obi. Makoto excused herself from Fugaku and rushed over to Sakura with a brilliant smile. "Oh Sakura, you look absolutely stunning. Spin for me." Makoto twirled her finger and Sakura slowly spun to please the Uchiha matriarch. She blushed as she came to a stop and allowed Makoto to fret over her before she turned to look at Shisui. His yukata was a royal blue with a white obi and Sakura all but drooled at the sight. She blushed when she realized that he was doing the same thing. "So, what exactly are we doing?" Sakura's question earned her a few smirks and a horrified look from Makoto. She walked over and grabbed Shisui's ear, pulling him over to where Sakura was standing. "You mean to tell me, Shisui Uchiha, that you did not tell your girlfriend that it was your birthday?" Shisui flushed lightly at Makoto's scolding and ducked out of her clutches. Sakura smiled fondly at the family in front of her. "I like this side of Shisui. I have a feeling not many people get to see it." She was snapped out of her musings when Itachi mentioned that they would be late and Makoto rushed them out the door. Sakura found herself walking between Shisui, Itachi, and Sasuke. "You all look very nice." "Of course you think we look nice, Sakura. You've always had a thing for Uchiha men. You were right, Sasuke, I do like Uchiha men. Maybe that's why I didn't date you. Shisui and Itachi chortled at her dig and Sasuke shot her a glare. What the hell would you call Dog Boy then? Sakura grimaced at the reminder. A mistake, he's a much better friend than anything. We actually went swimming together not too long ago, and I got to see all the dogs. Sasuke's eyes shot up above Sakura's head and she swiveled to see what caught his attention, instantly wishing she hadn't. She grabbed Itachi's arm to keep her steady when her eyes met Shisui's glare. He is totally just a friend. We talked it all out, Mr. Possessive Grouchy Pants. She ducked under Itachi's arm and shot him a pleading glance as she teased her boyfriend. He raised an eyebrow at her antics but settled his arm around her shoulders. Shisui, I bet we could scare him off permanently if you want. Sakura's mouth fell open and she sputtered in indignation. Makoto's giggle made them all look forward to see that she and Fugaku were both staring back at them fondly. I'll give you a few tricks to handle him, Sakura. I think overprotectiveness is an Uchiha gene. Makoto held onto Fugaku's arm and laughed even more at the strange looks the boys were giving her. Can the ground please open up and swallow me? I wish Shisui would have prepared me for something like this. Sakura found herself the center of attention during the large party and had managed to find a secluded spot near the desserts table to escape from everyone. However, as soon as she let her guard down, 3 old women approached her. They could have been triplets and felt no need to introduce themselves before giving Sakura the 3rd degree. How old are you, girl? The blunt question made Sakura swivel around to face the harsh voice. She smiled sweetly before answering. I am 18. Why do you ask? The old woman narrowed her eyes and ignored the question while the second woman spoke up. Why are you dating our Shisui? We don't need some floozy trying to trap him for his position. Sakura's eyebrows shot almost to her hairline. Oh, I see. Well, if you must know, it's none of your damn business. Now if you'll excuse me, I don't have time for rude interrogations. She turned to walk away and found herself staring at a broad chest. She looked up to see Shisui's angry glare, relaxing when she realized the look wasn't aimed at her. He placed his hands on her shoulders and turned her around to face the elders. I see you've all met Sakura-chan. What were you all talking about? Shisui's question made all of the women squirm uncomfortably, but he waited until they spoke. Shisui-san, we just want what is best for you. You could do so much better than this, weak girl. She doesn't even look like she would be able to bear you many children. Would she even follow the Uchiha traditions? The hands on her shoulders disappeared and looped around her waist loosely. She shivered when he began speaking. You would do well to remember that she could crush you with her pinky. She is only being polite to you 3 out of respect, and so am I. When you insult my lady, you insult me. Does my happiness not matter to any of you? Are you so blinded by the Uchiha name that you forget how to live a full, happy life? Maybe it's time for someone to put the council in their place, for good. Shisui stole Sakura away and they ended up sitting on the dock in front of the Uchiha lake. They sat side by side with their shoulders touching and legs dangling over the edge. Sakura, I'm sorry for all the questions and rude remarks. I didn't tell you about it because I knew this would happen, and honestly, I didn't want to go. He watched her reaction out of his peripheral. It's okay, I can deal with rude people. I just wish you would have told me that it was your birthday. I would have done something for you, she huffed in agitation and crossed her arms. Shisui leaned in and asked softly, what are you wearing under your kimono? His gaze darkened as her face turned a deep red. You were very thorough when shopping for me, Shisui. He raised his eyebrow when she didn't specifically say whether or not she was wearing the lingerie. She stared at the lake before taking a deep breath and whispering, they're beautiful and they fit perfectly. He inhaled sharply before flopping loudly down onto his back. I'm glad you like them, and just so we're clear, I won't pressure you into anything you're not ready for. I know Shisui and I'm grateful for that, but I can guarantee that I want you just as much as you want me. She let out a nervous yelp as her back hit the deck and Shisui hovered above her. Oh crap, I said that out loud. I doubt that, Sakura, and I'd be more than willing to show you just how much I desire you. He stared down at her and waited for her answer to his unspoken request. He slowly pulled down her kimono until the lace of her bra was visible and his eyes instantly turned red. I bought these for you with my birthday in mind. I would very much like to unwrap you, if you would be so accommodating. His lips nipped her shoulder, making her tremble in anticipation. She let out a throaty moan and arched her back off the deck as Shisui followed the strap of her bra down towards her S with his lips. Their eyes met and he let a slow, feral grin spread across his face in anticipation. She shivered and tangled her fingers in his hair as he made his way slowly back up to her lips, eyes never leaving her face. They both froze when soft voices carried on the wind and Sakura found herself suddenly surrounded by a thick comforter. Did you just? She was cut off by a low chuckle and lips claiming hers again. He pulled away and whispered, "Of course I did. I would lose my damn mind if we were interrupted again. A man has only so much patience." Sakura gave him a knowing look before hesitantly pushing on his shoulder to roll them over. He grinned before accommodating her and took her obi off in one smooth motion. Her hands flew out to steady herself, landing on his toned chest. A blush spread across her face as she realized she was now straddling him with her kimono wide open, his eyes roaming over her exposed skin. Reaching up, he followed the trail of lace against her ribs until both hands were gripping her sides. She swallowed thickly in nervousness and his eyes jumped off of her torso at the motion. He sat up with exaggerated slowness and took her hand, placing it on his obi. I treasure you, Sakura. I don't take this lightly. I know the trust that comes with this type of vulnerability. The bluntness of his statement shocked her. A gentle smile spread across his face as she leaned her head on his shoulder, gaining control of her breathing. Sorry, I'm just nervous. I've never done anything like this and you're hot as hell. His smoldering look made a blush light up her face and chest. I could say the same about you. I don't think you realize how much you affect me, especially in lace. He gently moved a strand of hair out of her face and gave her a saucy wink. Now, just take off my obi, Sakura. Stop teasing me and get on with it. The authority in his tone was something she was familiar with whenever he acted as her captain. She peered into his eyes and relaxed at what she saw while tugging at the thick material. It came loose suddenly and she would have fallen sideways if Shisui's arms weren't caging her in. He sat very still as she gently opened the front of his yukata and his Sharingan caught every small emotion that darted across her face. He sucked in a sharp breath as her delicate fingers brushed across his broad chest. He closed his eyes and let out a hum of anticipation as she grew bolder with her caresses. Her eyes darted up to his face when he leaned back against the headboard. She smiled before tweaking his playfully. His eyes flew open and locked onto hers. Bolting up so that they were chest to chest, Shisui threw his yukata off in one swift motion, leaving him in his boxers. Leaning back slightly, he pushed her kimono off her shoulders, fingers skimming the smooth skin teasingly and tossed it on top of his. Sakura fidgeted slightly as he drank in her appearance and jumped when he placed his hands on her bare sides. Shisui let out a chuckle but didn't stop his exploration. A startled yelp came from Sakura as she was once again flipped onto her back with blinding speed. If he is anything like the foreplay, then I can definitely see why all the kunoichi drool over you. She slapped a hand over her mouth as he laughed so hard that the entire bed shook. Oh crap, I said that out loud. He cut her off with a playful nip on her bottom lip and then unsnapped the front of her bra. Before she could try and cover herself in embarrassment, his lips wrapped around one of her S while his other hand teased and massaged the other. She let out a breathy moan and tangled her hands in his wild hair. Their eyes locked as he twirled his tongue around her sensitive butt and released it with a loud pop. His lips slid across her skin to the other and he spared no time in ravishing this one just as thoroughly as the other. Her hands tightened in his hair as he slowly ground his pelvis into hers. Sakura's hands started to explore his back as he pulled away and watched her face while his hands started to travel south. Her eyes opened wide in surprise as he expertly found her orifice. He smirked at her knowingly and lowered his lips to her neck as he began to stroke her. She moaned loudly when he slipped a finger inside her and started teasing her with slow, shallow thrusts. She gyrated her ass against his hands shamelessly and whimpered when he pulled away. What? Why did you stop? You didn't think I was done exploring, did you? He slid his hands into the band of her panties and peeled them off with exaggerated slowness. His eyes devoured her from the tips of her feet all the way up until their eyes locked again. She flushed deeply as he stood up in a fluid motion and dropped his boxers around his ankles. Look now while you have a chance, he grabbed her hand and wrapped it around his. He let out a hiss and tipped his head back when she experimentally squeezed and rubbed this shaft. Oh, I'm sorry, did I hurt you? She yanked her hand back and searched his face for clues. He reopened his eyes, and she watched as his jaw muscles flexed before he spoke. I am the furthest thing from hurt right now, Sakura. I can take a lot more than that, and I look forward to seeing just how far I can push you. The heat rushing between her legs had her panting. He knows exactly what to do and what to say. Holy shit. Ino is going to die when I tell her just how good he is. He nudged her back down and crawled between her legs, nudging them apart with his hands. I've been wanting to do this since you sassed me in your office. You don't understand how hard it was for me not to bend you over that desk and make you scream my name. His breath ghosted over her inner thigh while he spoke, causing goosebumps to break out across her skin. Damn it, Shisui. Just touch me and stopping teasing me. A devious grin spread across his face before he slowly nibbled down her stomach, stopping just above her. I love when you demand things, it's hot. That being said, I like being in charge, so sit back and enjoy the ride, sweetheart. He licked her opening and sucked on her sensitive bundle of nerves right when she opened her mouth to retort. A low moan left her lips instead and he hummed his approval, giving her more pleasure. She tried to sit up but he quickly grabbed both of her hands and pinned them above her head. You will stay just like this. I'm not done having my way with you. He slowly released her hands and watched her through narrowed eyes. He once again went down on her and his talented tongue had her tangling her hands in his hair. He stopped his motions and slowly raised his head, Sharingan spinning dangerously. What did I just tell you to do? She swallowed thickly and put her hands back above her head, eyes never leaving his. Good girl. Don't move them again or I'll have to punish you. He put his head back down but nipped her inner thigh before continuing. Her yelp of surprise turned into a moan of pleasure as he quickly built her up. The heat coiling in her stomach started to spread through her body and she couldn't hold back any longer. Shisui, please. I'm about to. She came with an intensity that surprised even Shisui. He didn't stop until she was quaking and trying to push his head away from her. He slid up her body, kissing her sensitive skin all the way until his lips captured hers in a passionate kiss. He slid his tongue along her lip, and she pulled away with a frown on her face. He chuckled when she whispered, I seriously don't want to taste myself. The smile left his lips and he gently caressed her face. Are you sure you want this? She nodded and he instantly placed himself at her entrance while trapping both of her hands above her head again. A knock at the door had him pausing. Sakura blinked once and he was gone. She blinked again and he was back in front of her fully dressed. Sakura, the Hokage needs us. I'll go ahead of you. Take a few minutes to get yourself ready. He gently kissed her forehead and whispered an apology before disappearing in a cloud of smoke and leaves. She sat there a moment before running to the bathroom. She took the world's fastest shower, while wrangling down her irrational emotions of abandonment. 7 minutes later, she was slightly out of breath standing in front of the Hokage's desk, trying to stop her legs from trembling. Tsunade gave Sakura a curious look as the kunoichi sat down slowly in her chair. Sakura, however, did not notice since she was intensely focused on Shikamaru, who was seated at the head of the table with his father. They were in a large, circular chamber with 2 windows facing Konoha, and Sakura internally named off all the people who were in the room. Obviously Shikamaru and Shikaku are leading the meeting. Kakashi is here, Team 1, Gaara and his entourage, Shisho and Shizune, Ibiki-sensei, Inoichi and Ino, Jiraiya, and the 2 council members. This is not good. As you all know, the Akatsuki have paid us a recent visit and made threats. As Shikaku spoke, all eyes quickly cut to Sakura and then back to him. Great. Now most of them are going to take this personally. I don't know if I should be happy or nervous. Ino gave Sakura a wink and then turned back to Shikaku while Sakura pulled out a notebook and started writing things down. Next to her she had 3 scrolls from the previous meeting with Jiraiya already filled with information on the Akatsuki, how the village should respond and evacuate, and what the medic nin were supposed to do. I wonder if the traitor is in this room right now. The information that has been given out hasn't been shared with many people. That probably means that all of us are going to be given some sort of information as a test. Sakura straightened up when Kakashi came up behind her and placed a hand on her shoulder. She had missed a good bit of the conversation while she was lost in thought. She cut her eyes to Shisui and was disappointed to see that he didn't even look her way. She refocused on Tsunade when she saw her expression change. Tsunade stood up and looked around the room with unforgiving eyes. Danzo has escaped. We are not sure exactly how, but we do know that it all happened about an hour ago. Surveillance does not show anyone coming or going from his cell. Murmurs broke out across that table as everyone speculated what could have happened. Sakura took a surreptitious look at the various attendants around the room. She honed in on a short, plain woman who seemed to fidget more than the rest. I don't think I've seen her around before. I can't be the only one to question her being here. Before her mind could catch up with her action, Sakura made a hand motion that only Tsunade would comprehend. The Sannin focused on the signal and tensed slightly. Seeing as the room was filled with high-level ninja, everyone immediately noticed and glanced between the Hokage and her apprentice. Sakura stood slowly and strolled towards her. Shisho, are we any closer to handling the lack of field medics? I have not thought of any advancements nor have any of the others working on it. Tsunade visibly relaxed while Itachi and Sasuke tensed. Have you had any success with this? Sakura hummed and shrugged her shoulders. I'm not sure. I have a hunch about a new regiment we could try. The closer she got to the attendant, the more the woman tensed. Sakura paused next to Shisui, who was standing 3 feet from Tsunade. She glanced up at him and communicated her suspicions with her eyes. His Sharingan activated, eyes darting to the suspected target, and all hell broke loose in the room when a smoke bomb was detonated. Sakura closed her eyes and held her breath as she listened to grunts and clanging of metal. Shisui pressed something into her hand and then disappeared. Her eyes snapped open when the windows in the room imploded. She didn't flinch as tiny cuts emerged on her arms and face. It seems like our target is trying to flee. Time to follow. She tapped Kakashi on his elbow 3 times and jumped out the window into the night. He was close on her heels and gave her a questioning look. They quickly disappeared out of the village as they followed the fleeing chakra signature. Sakura, I don't like this. Kakashi's hushed tones and narrowed eyes made Sakura tense. They were in front of a gaping hole in the side of a mountain. We should wait for backup. She glanced at Kakashi, contemplating what to do. She fiddled with the object in her pocket, thinkingly quickly. Kakashi-sensei, are you being more careful because you don't see me as a good partner? The glint in her eye had him quickly shaking his head. You know that's not what I mean. He summoned his pack, speaking in hushed tones. This just feels like a trap. It was too easy to follow the culprit, and we both know that our adversaries are clever. They would never do something without calculating the risks. I can't argue with that. She leaned down and scratched behind Pakun's ear. But if we wait too long, we could lose her, or we could be in the perfect position to be ambushed. We need to decide what to do quickly. I'm not sure of the whole situation, but I can tell you this: whoever you are chasing smells sick. They have a strange scent that we only associate with Orochimaru's experiments. Pakun and the pack slowly positioned themselves in front of the ninja as he spoke. Sakura's demeanor changed when she heard this. I'm sorry, Kakashi. I can't wait for backup. This is part of my mission and I have to gather intel on her. Are you with me? Before she could even finish her sentence, Kakashi was taking point and heading into the dark space. Sakura coughed and cursed underneath her breath. This is not how I thought this battle would go. How the hell did we end up tricked like this? She picked herself up out of a pile of rubble and started to heal her wounds. Kakashi was holding the enemy off with fluid, experienced movements. Orochimaru blocked the only exit with a ferocious smile on his face, enjoying the carnage even if it was his experiments being shredded. She flash-stepped behind Kakashi and synced her movements with his. She began healing his wounds as he bobbed and weaved. She grabbed his and Kakashi got the hint. He grabbed her wrist and used the momentum to slingshot her directly at the woman. Instead of punching her straight into Orochimaru, Sakura grabbed her head and twisted violently. Before either Kakashi or Orochimaru could move, she sealed the woman in a scroll and hid it away. Bravo, Sakura. I must say that I am impressed with how much you have grown. I cannot wait to become better acquainted with you. Orochimaru stuck out his long tongue and laughed loudly. His face grew serious as his mood shifted. However, I am very displeased that I no longer have Kabuto at my side. He was an invaluable assistant and doctor. You'll have very large shoes to fill when you take his role. Sakura visibly gagged at the thought of working with the snake Sanin. I would kill myself before I allowed you to use me as a puppet. She jumped back to flank Kakashi's right side and hissed as more henchmen arrived. As much as I love your fiery spirit, Sakura-chan, I absolutely cannot wait to break you. His cackling was all the warning the duo had before they were attacked again. 4 enemies rushed headlong into battle while 2 stayed back, stalking just outside of their range. Sakura ducked as an average-sized man tried to punch her in the face. She then narrowly escaped being kicked as she lunged to the side and popped up with her back against Kakashi's. They revolved as their enemies circled them and attacked again. Sakura blocked a kick while Kakashi threw kunai. They were forced to separate from each other as a roundhouse kick was aimed for both Sakura's head and Kakashi's legs. Sakura backflipped to the other side of the cave and started gathering chakra into her hands. Chakra scalpels appeared and her enemies grew wary. It seems that they are filled in on our techniques. That means I'll have to shake it up a bit. She glanced at her teammate and continued only when she was satisfied that he was handling his own just fine. Sakura created 3 shadow clones and rushed the shinobi. One of her clones was immediately taken down with a kunai in the throat and Sakura stumbled a little as the memories flashed before her eyes. A taller man took the opportunity to grab her by the face. Sakura pushed both her hands into the man's stomach and it exploded out his back, covering the right side of the cave in a red splatter. As she turned to face the next man, she let out a nervous grunt and narrowed her eyes. Orochimaru had directed the remaining experiments to fight Kakashi and was now only a few feet away from her. Sakura grabbed the object in her pocket and threw it on the ground. Orochimaru's minions could be heard gagging and falling to the floor. Sakura rushed to Kakashi and teleported them directly out of the cave. As she gave him the antidote, the hair on the back of her neck raised. She whirled around in just enough time to dodge a monstrous snake trying to swallow her. Nervously, she took a step back as its master walked up to stare at her. My reserves are pitifully low. I haven't gotten any sleep in a while, and I haven't eaten anything recently. I am going to run out of stamina before I can make an escape. She glanced back at Kakashi, slowly getting to his feet. He gave her a once-over and she knew he was thinking along the same lines. Sakura, the look on his face made her angry. I am not leaving you, sensei. I may not have a lot left in me, but I can at least offer you assistance. He sighed at how determined she was and did something that surprised them all. He grabbed Sakura and flickered out of the clearing. Sakura landed on her feet and the two started running back towards Konoha. Are we seriously running right now? I know he's strong but we could have. She was cut off at the angry look he shot at her. What else was I supposed to do? You are his target. If I failed in subduing him then you would be lost to us. I will not be responsible for losing you. You have too many people who love you. His hands were balled into angry fists. I understand and I'm sorry. I didn't think of how you would feel in that situation. She gave him a watery smile and he sighed. They were going as fast as they could but both of them were low on chakra and Orochimaru was gaining on them. Sakura stumbled into a clearing and Kakashi gently steadied her. Get ready, Sakura. It's dark, and we're still almost an hour from Konoha. He'll attack soon. Sakura nodded, trying to catch her breath. They both tensed when a river of snakes came slithering towards them. Kakashi quickly lit up the area with a Kaiden jutsu that incinerated the field. Sakura punched the ground with her inhuman strength as Orochimaru made his appearance. He stumbled and almost lost his footing when Kakashi followed the earthquake up with a water dragon jutsu. Hatake, you are standing in my way. I'll finish you off quickly so I can have a little more fun with your student. Sakura didn't hesitate in her hand signs as she shot water bullets at the vile man. Kakashi quickly followed up with Chidori. Orochimaru saw the combo attack before it was even finished and disappeared under the ground. Sharanu. The ground burst all around them and Sakura smirked, watching the irritated man lurch at them with murder in his eyes. She plopped on the ground without a care in the world while Kakashi jumped in and intercepted him. It shouldn't be long now. She slumped over, completely exhausted, flinching when Kakashi was thrown down next to her. About 10 feet away, Orochimaru licked his lips and hummed in victory. Ah, I cannot wait to see what type of children you will bear for me, Sakura. Kakashi let out a feral growl at the insinuation but Sakura quickly grabbed his arm to keep him in place. He took another step and his face changed from victorious to incredulous. Team 1 stepped out of the shadows and assessed the damage with cold, calculating eyes. Nothing could be seen outwardly, but Sakura still let out a snicker and fell flat on her back, having complete faith in her teammates. They are totally pissed. Some of it may be at me for being so reckless but, they'll at least take it out on his royal creepiness first. Before Sakura could settle down too comfortably a huge chakra signature appeared on the field. She bolted upright just in time to see two Akatsuki members land on either side of the snake Sanin. She jumped to her feet and stared warily at them. The one with the monstrous chakra wore an orange mask and was taller than the other man. The other member was a woman with purple hair and she was the one to speak. I thought we told you to stay out of our way. She glanced at Sakura curiously before raising an eyebrow. We were just protecting ourselves. We did not attack Orochimaru first. Kakashi spoke calmly, ever the voice of reason. The masked man turned slowly to look at the glaring man between him and his partner. His deep voice was menacing and caused Sakura to visibly shiver. We warned you as well, Orochimaru. We don't care about your disgusting experiments as long as you don't interfere with our plans. Orochimaru took a calculated step back and raised his hands in a placating manner. I had no intention of messing with the Akatsuki's plans. I was just chasing after what I want. Give me the pink-haired girl and you won't see me until you need me. The two Akatsuki members stared at Sakura for a minute and she could see the look of confusion on Conan's face. She was scratched, bruised, and covered in blood. She was frozen at the idea of them stealing her for Orochimaru. Before she could move to defend herself, the four men grabbed her and shoved her behind them.